L'écho du bal.
Why don't we sit down and talk?
I don't want to sit down and talk. I want to do something.
Why don't you read a book?
Dans le cadre de l'exposition « À partir d'elle » des artistes et leur mère, l'écrivain Bertrand Schefer, en résidence au bal, invite des écrivaines et écrivains à nous livrer un texte inédit autour de la figure de la mère. Dans cet épisode, les mots de Thomas Clerc.
Good evening. I am going to talk about my mother. And I will say it in English, if you don't mind. I don't know exactly why, but you will know it prochainement. Well, there are many reasons for the choice. One of the reasons is as you can see, my English is not so great. But I think as it is not so great, it can be understood. And in fact, maybe there are non-francophone auditeurs here. Well, it's a possibility. So I think that it's easier to understand what I have to say in a language that everybody speaks and understands now, of the world. So it makes the comprehension very different than if it were in French, which is sometimes difficult to understand. My mother is now in, like we say, EHPAD, and what I prefer to call maison de retraite, but I have lost this kind of denomination. She is 19-year-old, and of course, I love her very much, as the majority of people, I think. I want to say that everybody loves her mother or his mother, and not especially my mother. So don't be too. If I may make some errors, it has no importance really. In fact, but I won't repeat it again. So I didn't write a text tonight. I wanted to say a text. That's what I'm going to do. And I know why I choose that. Because my mother was, or is, she likes very much to talk. She was, I don't know exactly the word, but I think there is she was a garrulous, I think. Garrulous. Bavard. And she was a woman of talking, speaking, chattering, garrulous. I don't know exactly the word, but I think garrulous is good. It may be a little literary, but I'm not sure. This is for me, of course, kind of a quality to be garrulous. So you know that we often say that women are garrulous. So if it's the case, I am looking like a woman, because I like to very much speak and have some conversations and make some, well, and the profession of my mother had a link with the fact of speaking. She was an attaché de presse. They talk too much, in fact. And then she was visiteuse médicale. You have to talk to the doctor that solution Stago is good for health. And then she was an agent immobilier. So you have to say that this is a magnificent flat, right? So she loved to talk, and she made some kind of professions which are not exactly professions, but some intermediate professions, I think. I became a teacher and a writer, because my mother, she didn't want to be a writer, but she liked to talk and to hear and to put some people talking from other. She had some philosophical course with a professor. She had cours particulier with a philosopher during all her life. I was impressed when But there is one thing important to understand, that she didn't make any studies. She was born in 1929, and she got married in 1950, on the 5th of September. And she left for Africa, and she was very interested in ideas, in literature and philosophy, but she didn't make any studies. So she was not, she loved very much philosophy and literature, but she made 2 children, my brothers, and then me after. She didn't write. She did not write. So you understand better now, because I didn't want to write something. It was kind of an homage to that woman who did not write, but who liked, who loved to speak, and very clever, but always chattering. That's one thing. She was born, her first name was Jacqueline, but I've never heard people say her Jacqueline. It was her first name when she was a child. And when she got married to my father, she changed her name. Sometimes it happens. Well, in fact, I don't think that she liked Jacqueline, and her husband, my father, didn't like Jacqueline too. But I don't know if she changed her name because she wanted to change her name, or because she wanted to make a proof of love to her husband, who called her Jackie. And of course, it was more modern, because we are in the 50s. Jackie, it was better than Jacqueline, which was so much French. a little bit ringard. But you know, as times go by, Jackie became ringard too. And so she accepted this sort of nickname until she quit my father in 1972, the 23rd of October. And she decided, when she left my father, whom she didn't want to hear about him any longer, she decided to change her first name. And then she decided to call herself Barbara. It was an homage to the singer, but I think it was another reason that it was kind of a performative action of baptizing herself by this prénom. So there were people who called her Jackie. It was the old world. And some people who called her Barbara. This is the new world. It was at the time where my mother became feminist. A feminist ultra. I admire this act that she did. I admire it very profoundly. Because try to change your name and say to the people, now you will call me Barbara and never Jackie. And you are sure that 50% of the population won't do that. It means, where are your friends? So there was a good rupture, yeah. So my mother was very brave to do that, I think. And I wanted to say it. I have said that my mother loved philosophy more than literature. That explains a lot of things about me, because of course there is a link between literature and philosophy, but it's not the same. When she was young, I think it was during the war in 1945, she was in Terminale, in the Lycée Lamartine in Paris. And she was very interested in philosophy. And she assisted to the cours of philosophy by his teacher. And she told me this, which has a very strong effect on me. She told me that she was the only one in the class. There were 40, I think. Very lot of people in the class, 40 girls. She was the only one who was listening to the teacher. She was at the first rank, trying to hear what the teacher said. As he has no authority, there was a mess, total mess, into the course. And my mother, she was desperate because she wanted to hear about Platon, about Kant. And all the girls, they were just chattering, walking, making some fuss. And so they were talking about what we can talk when you are 18. Young girls talking about men and love and who is going to go out with, etc., etc. And I have, well, I have the image of my mother. She's alone, surrounded by 40 or 39 women who are absolutely not interested in thinking. And my mother is fuckingly desperate. She says, I want to hear, and she said to the teacher, speak louder, because it's interesting what you say. But he was, I suppose, a weak man. Maybe a good teacher, but not in fact. And to make a conclusion, my mother told me something. She said sometimes she turned back on the class and said, shut up, I want to hear. And she said to me something. She said, in the rear of the class, in the back of the class, there was a girl who was putting some vernis à ongles during the course. And my mother, she said she saw that. It was terrible for her. And she said, people don't like thinking. And the terrible thing is that women who put some vernis à ongles on their hands, they don't like to think. And this is one of the polemical sources of the feminism of my mother. Because she thought that there was a separation, absolute, between the fact of thinking and the fact of decorating itself. And she told me that with the certainty that she was right, that there was a separation between philosophy and vernis à ongles. It was in 1945. She became feminist after, but you can understand now why I have been speaking in English. Because all my life I had to separate myself from this idea, which my mother taught me. And it's the only thing I have found to speak tonight in another language.